Welcome, everyone. As we're waiting for folks to come in, welcome to the Intro to Admissions Counseling webinar series. This is our second webinar for this year. We had one a few weeks ago, and we're excited to offer this as a tool, especially for those of you who are newer to admissions counseling. My name is Palmer Muntz, and I am co-chair for professional development for PNACAC. And let me just take a peek ahead at what's coming down the pipe for you all. The session today, our topic is about best practices for high school visits and for college fairs. I hope this will be especially valuable for those of you who haven't yet done either of those. And then you can see some other topics that we have for the rest of the year. We're going to take October off because we knew that basically probably everyone who is caring about most of this subject matter will be very busy traveling and doing school visits and college fairs. And as we're getting rolling here, Erin Jensen, who is our tech chair for PNACAC, has a poll that we've set up. Would you put that up, Erin, for us as we get started? So if you all would respond to this, that would be fantastic. By the way, we are recording this session. And so if you maybe have teammates who weren't able to join us today, if they'll simply register for the Intro to Admissions Counseling series on the PNACAC site, it's open to all members. They'll get access to the recording later on. So looks like most of our participants are based on a campus. I'm a regional admissions counselor. So even though I work for the University of Alaska Fairbanks, I'm based in Vancouver, Washington. A lot of folks will travel to a number of states, but also several of you are only traveling in your local area. And about half and half as far as whether this is your first travel season. So that's fantastic. So with that, why don't we just take a second and, oh, sorry, I needed to click share results. Erin, I told you I don't know how to do these polls.
You're good.
So
here we go. I'm going to share results again with everyone just so we can all
thank
see
you.
them.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You got to look out for me, okay? But Erin, why don't we start with you, let you introduce yourself, and let's just go around the room, so to speak, with our panelists, and maybe let us know, where you work, a little bit of your background, and so on as well. Okay.
Sorry, Palmer, are you wanting me to join too?
You go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right,
and
cool. So my name is Erin Jensen. I use she, her pronouns. Most recently, I was the director of admissions at Washington State University, Vancouver, and I've been in college admissions for about 15 years now. And I am the technology chair of PNACAC. So great to see you all here. Welcome.
And Erin, if you need to go and work behind the scenes, that's great. If you want to be actively engaged, either way is up to you, okay?
You know me, I always have things to say. So okay. I probably won't have my video on, but y'all who are here, you're probably going to hear from me at some point. So thanks.
Well, I could go next. My name is Ray Peppley, and I'm a high school, college, and career counselor. I've been a high school counselor for over 20 years, and I'm at a public high school called Owyhee High School in Meridian, Idaho, and Meridian is about 10 minutes outside of Boise, our capital. And I'm in a large comprehensive, four-year comprehensive high school. I have about 1,800 students on my campus. And I am the other side of Palmer. I'm his co-chair for the Professional Development Committee.
Jennifer, you go.
My name is Jennifer Fichamba, and I am the opposite of Ray. I'm at a smaller public high school in Tukwila, Washington at Foster High School. We are about 800 students, 9 through 12. We are a low income community, and I'm the College and Career Readiness Specialist at Foster.
I'll hop on super quick. Hi, I'm Alassane. I am the Portland Regional Admissions Counselor for Eastern Oregon University. Happy to be on this panel today. This is about my 8th year in admissions, and yeah, welcome.
Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Azarkan. I am regionally based for University of the Pacific. Our campus is in Stockton, California, but I happen to live in the Seattle area. And I was doing the math last week on my first week back, and I am now legal at year 21 on the road. So I have done a few cycles on the road, but I do cover about 11 states. And prior to this, University of the Pacific, I was based out on the East Coast. So some great travel experience, especially being from Seattle and being regionally based. So thank you all for joining us today.
So let me make a couple of things real clear as we get rolling. One is that we put this panel together specifically because we think these are folks that have some good background for you. I love having Alassane and Stephanie here because if you're on the road, you're very likely going to run into them sooner or later. And so it's nice to have a familiar face. The other thing I want to make clear is this is a Q&A, okay? And so we're counting on you to use the Q&A function to ask questions, things that you maybe are a little bit anxious about or confused about. You're welcome to ask them anonymously, but I promise this is a safe space. So do whatever is comfortable for you. You can also use the chat if you have comments, maybe that you have some insights that you'd like to share with the group. You can do that. But while you're thinking of the questions that you'd like to ask, I have some pre-prepared that I thought we would start with. And actually, my first question I was going to ask you, Stephanie, if you wouldn't mind getting us going. And that is, would you simply walk us through the nuts and bolts of doing a high school visit? For those who it's their first travel season, it can be a little intimidating to walk into a strange high school the first time. So walk us through that.
Yeah, Palmer, that's great. Absolutely. So, we get to this time frame in September or August, depending on where you are. I was actually on the road last week in Arizona, so a little bit outside of Pinnacac, but Vegas and Nevada happened to be my territory. So I get to visit there a little earlier in the fall and kind of start the process and test out the ropes and kind of try to get everything going and hopeful that my planning in plan A, B, and C is going to work eventually. And probably the best thing I'll say to prepare yourself for success with travel is know that you're going to have a backup plan for your backup plan, and most likely going to have to institute that at some point. You're going to have to just roll with the punches. High school visits vary. Today I had two distinctly different visits. Great visits, wonderful visits. Monday, I had 3 very unique visits as well. So, I would tell students the biggest thing we can do is make sure we know our who, what, where, when, those type of things, but also do our research and what we're getting into. Are we going to be meeting with Ray and Jennifer on a one-on-one? Perhaps they don't have a sign-up system. Perhaps they do have a sign-up system. This week I logged into SCORE. As we all know, SCORE, Maya, rep visits, right? All of these different modalities for us to book. And I noticed that I had 2 students at schools that were brand new to me visiting. That was huge. So I could prepare myself to say, okay, 2 students might show up. If only 1 shows up, great. If none show up, if 6 show up, oh, that would be great, right? So how we prepare, each one of us is different. For me, myself, I definitely will look at my app starters, the inquiries for this year, double check the names if I know who's attending. That's another possibility. Did somebody on your team possibly leave visit notes, parking notes, how to arrive early, just a little bit of helpful information about that specific school? That is helpful. And that brings me to a tip that somebody on my team actually taught me recently is leaving notes in Slate. If you're a Slate school, leave a little note there behind. So next year when you look at the trip or somebody comes in to help you out, they know Jennifer texts, Ray will email you ahead of time your visit notes, or, make sure you go to this coffee shop down the street for great Wi-Fi, that type of thing. So as far as like the before the visit knowledge, making sure you come in with that knowledge, especially for me as somebody, I don't get a ton of students that are coming, from Washington down to California. So knowing if I have an athlete, a special scholarship, a confirmed student that just enrolled, if I have that connection with the family, mentioning that to the counselor, that's a great idea, just to be prepared for that. But truly try to see what you can gather from last year's visit. If you don't have that, guess what? I just started over a new territory. And it works. You figure it out. You kind of, once again, we're going to say roll with the punches, but that's what happens. Roll with your luggage and your carry-on is the best I can say for getting in and out of the visits. Figure out your technology. Make sure your technology is up to date and you've practiced it. So is it Wi-Fi enabled, or do you need to have the good old jump drive? Or you know what? I've gotten to the point where I just have a couple slides screenshotted on my phone and on my Surface, because I may not be able to access something. So just that backup plan will definitely help for sure. And once you know the type of visit, you can prepare yourself. Almost an elevator pitch for the 1 minute, the 3 minute, the 5 minute, the counselor that is just going to do marvelous things and fit you into their schedule because they're so busy, but they want to know what's going on. What do you have for me at Pacific? What's new? Know what they need, what they're looking for. Make sure to ask a question too, so you understand. Today I was at a brand new school to me after 21 seasons. I didn't know what the senior class size was, so I made sure to ask that. Check the school profile as well, if you can access that ahead of time. And you don't always have that. That's totally fine, but that info can help you in your planning and knowing what your questions might be. If it's a lunch visit, pack a little extra. Be patient, be kind. You might have a first year student, a freshman student that says, "What's this? What is this?" That's okay. It might be your their first interaction and your first interaction with a student live, right? So a smile, hey, yeah, we have football. Come on over. Let's talk about it. Or, whatever their question might be. Just, be prepared. The questions you're going to get, it could be a senior that's been to your campus 3 times, or it could be a first gen student like I was at an inner city high school who didn't get a lot of visitors. So you're going to get a really wide variety of questions and folks, then keeping in mind that they are your audience for sure. So each elevator pitch, each visit is a little different. You're going to learn to roll with the punches and make it work. Also getting to know the high school counselors, staff, including sometimes the secretary, the folks that greet you and bring you into the office. They may be the only people because somebody's doing a class or teaching or has to substitute, or there's an emergency, or it's the dreaded homecoming week, right? Or spirit week. So, those are the type of things. Another tip I would recommend when we're setting up the visits is checking calendars. Is it going to be homecoming week? Is there a test coming? Is it a half day at the school? And the school may have forgotten on their calendar and rep visits or Maya Learning or something to change that. And you notice ahead of time, oh, I only have 20 minutes now because of something. That's okay. If you're prepared with different types of visits, so maybe your materials, what are your visit approaches? Is it that short, medium, long visit? You may have no kids, or we know you may have 20, and those are such a great day, right? You leave there going, this is why we do this, very fun, very invigorating, and you learn about the school, the community, and what's going on there. So a visit can take many different shapes. Our number one goal is to share the information that the counselor and the students need. What is it that we can help them with? Is it simply a Common App question? Is it simply, how do I apply to your school? Is it an Oregon-based question, right? Or Alaska-based, or Idaho-based, Washington-based question? That's okay. I may not know the answer, but I can find out in our Panacat group, in our Aero regional group. I can find somebody to help that counselor or that student as well. So you'll build that network and you'll get there, and don't feel ashamed to reach out to any of us, that, the panelists, or even just folks that you may meet at college fairs. There's some doozies, some fun stories that we can share about, your pants splitting. Mine split. My pants split when I helped another college at my first NACAC. That was fun. Thankfully, I had a jacket to cover it up. But, those are the kind of things that you start to learn about each other. Not shy to share that story. That's my first year on the road, and that happened, So and it didn't scare me off. I'm still here. Going into high schools, it's going to be a different, different feeling everywhere you go. So as long as you have a open mind, which in admissions a lot of us are, we're all willing to take a chance. We're willing to meet and greet and smile, and then come back and take notes and fine tune your pitch. Fine tune. I even keep a notebook of questions I got asked I still can't answer. Great, I'm going to go back and ask my team here. What is it? What can you guys help me with? So, and if your team is all new, that's okay. You can lean on each other. You can lean on other counselors that are there as well. So, Palmer, I hope that's what you.
That's great. And by the way, so Stephanie just threw a lot of great info, and I can see some of you on the other side of the screen going, "Oh my God, I can't do this." Yes, you can. You'll take it one step at a time. Okay. And you'll make mistakes and it'll be okay. And I think probably and Alassane, I'd love for you to weigh in with a couple thoughts before I throw a question at you. But I think one of the big things is you never know what's going to happen next. I remember walking into a school thinking I was talking one-on-one with a counselor, just a quick little, hey, let me tell you about my school. You can tell me about your school. I walked and she goes, oh, okay, the class is ready for you. And I walked into a classroom with 20 or 25 students. And fortunately, because I'm old and I've done this a while, I had a presentation in my side pocket that was good for a class that I knew nothing about. It'll be okay. Alassane, any thoughts before I throw a question at you?
Yeah, definitely. If there was one key point that I would take away from that would definitely be the preparation. So just having your presentation on a thumb drive as well as on your Surface, and carry a little USB converter in case they're on Apple and you only have USB-C, or little things like that maybe don't take up too much space. Have analog printed copies of your QR code in case your phone or your Surface dies. Just thinking of what might go wrong and how can I mediate it or find that sidestep plan B. Preparation is key for a lot of it. Yeah.
One other thing I'll just throw into the mix too is if you go to a school visit and there's no students to talk to you, it is not a failure. And as much as you can, Stephanie said this, talk with the staff, talk with the counselor, and don't, as Stephanie said, don't discount the administrative assistant. The administrative assistant probably knows the students very well, and probably in sort of an unofficial way ends up being a counselor on her own or his own. So, hey, Alassane, what steps do you walk through when you're coming to a college fair? And I know there's a variety of different types of college fairs, but how can these folks mentally prepare for a college fair, and what would they do when they arrive?
Yeah, I would say it even starts the day before or the weekend before if you're having a lot of college fairs back to back to back. So once again, making sure you have everything that you need in your bag, your tablecloth if it needs to get ironed. That's always a nice, fun little pro tip. But making sure that you have time in between your visits to get to your fair on time. If it starts at 9 o'clock, that doesn't mean pulling into the parking lot of the school at 8:57. You're behind your table, everything's set up and you're ready to go at 9 o'clock, if not before then. I like 20-30 minutes beforehand if I'm not traveling from super far away, so I can just have everything set, have my table set up, and then go to the restroom, grab some water, grab some coffee, chat with other counselors, check your notes that you might have put in on a certain event, or if there's a certain area that students might be interested in, or a new program that you can update students on, using that time to just kind of make sure. I'm a deep breath kind of guy, so I'll just set up, okay, here we are, ready to go, and then cool, and then just get the fair started, and then it makes it go a lot smoother, and there's not a lot of I don't know the right word. There's not too much turmoil going on.
Stress.
Stress, turmoil. If you give yourself extra time, because things will come up, flat tires, dead batteries, and that can just eat into your extra time, and you're still not going to be late. Yeah.
Sounds good. I think in a lot of ways, college fairs can be a highlight of your experience because it's your chance to connect with people who are in the same role as you and can commiserate with you and share plans. I've talked with Stephanie, Alassane some too, but Stephanie, a lot of times I'll say, what about this school? What did you experience? Or maybe you say, was it like this for you? Like everything went wrong? And they're like, yeah, Stephanie, you're reacting to that. Ray and Jennifer, I wanted to ask you to kind of maybe give us some perspective from the other side of the desk. How many college reps do you host in a fall or in a year? How many visits do you maybe have in a day? Just because I think sometimes as admissions counselors, we feel really miffed when, we don't get all your attention, but unfortunately you've got some other things going on in your life. Can you give us some perspectives on that?
I don't mind starting with that. I prefer to host only one college a day because I want the students not to be overwhelmed with the amount of information that they're getting. Per season, I probably have 20, 25 colleges come through. We had our first college visit yesterday, and I have 3 next week. And I know a lot of schools, they're constrained to having it during lunch or during advisory, but I'm fortunate that they're welcome. My administration lets us have them at any time during the day. I actually avoid lunch as much as possible because there's too many things going on at lunchtime for kids. But I also don't use any kind of visit system because we don't have a budget for that. But I learned earlier today that actually it is free. So I'm going to look in that for next year. But I also, if I have students who are interested in the college and they're not on my radar, I will just contact their admissions office and try to set up a visit that way. Because I do have kids that want to go to different programs. I was really thankful that Palmer is now one of my people because I do have kids who are interested in University of Alaska. So that's kind of it.
So you're typically are limiting yourself to one visit per day.
Yeah, I feel it's better. I also, because I can do them during the class period, I don't want to take away from too much class time for it.
Sure.
But also too, I was talking with my colleague earlier, and we were talking about how it can be really overwhelming for students to get so much information. And I feel like having multiple visits during the week is better than having 3 in a day. And also kids are also applying for college at this time. So I need a space for that as well.
And I don't want to rabbit trail too much here, but there's a particular school here in the Northwest that I went to visit one time, and I came to realize when I walked in, it was very easy to schedule a visit there and so on. I walked in and they had a whiteboard outside the counseling office that I think had 25 to 30 visits for that week listed at least. And so on the walking in, I thought, this is awesome. I get to visit. Got there and discovered there was no support for me as a visitor. I was sent to an empty classroom to just wait and see if a student showed up. And so sometimes what you want isn't really what you want. So Ray, do you have some thoughts on how you handle visits?
Were you going to say something else, Jennifer? Oh, okay. So I'm like Jennifer, I can use class time for presentations. So it helps me. Since I'm in a new building, this is only our 3rd year, and many schools don't know about my high school. It's been tough to get the word out. So they'll see me in SCORE while they're looking for high schools that they have had on the radar for a long time. So that helps me, because if I only had lunchtime, I'd never see those reps because they have such a limited time in our area. So I guess I'm thinking about the most visits I get are right around our NACAC College Fair in October. So that's our really large push for college visits. And otherwise, it's just maybe some reps in the area for maybe they're having a parent night for our students, and so they're here to have that, so they'll reach out. But most of my big push is right around that mid-October time, and I have spot for 4 in a day, around that time. But I, fortunately, a little different than Jennifer, I don't have the same students that will come to those. Students can sign up for the rep visits, and I have anywhere from 1 or 0 to 1 to maybe over 10 that will sign up for a visit, but it's never been the same students. So that's fortunate, because I would have a concern about them too, of
Missing
maybe
too much
using
class time.
too much class time missed, and then I'll lose being able to have this opportunity during class.
Just, I think when you're starting out as an admissions counselor, it's hard to know what expectations should be. Stephanie, Alassane, when you're scheduling a trip or scheduling a day of recruitment, how much are you hoping? What's your ideal day? What's a typical day?
I'll go with that one. I think, what ideal, meaning, the director and the team feel we can fit into the calendar, and what traffic and scheduling dictates, right? I definitely try for 4 a day. I was going back to Arizona last week, able to organize it because it was my 3rd time there. So I kind of knew what worked and what didn't. And so I was able to get in 4. I flew home Friday. So I went down to 3 visits. Probably wouldn't recommend that again if you're traveling, especially with that 5 o'clock, that flight, that type of thing. But truly for me, 3 in a college fair, 4 in a college fair can be difficult, but it's manageable. Especially, I'm noticing a lot of our fairs are 5:36 this year. So, if we have that extra time to get from one school, one neighborhood to the next, and, get ourselves organized, I think that works for me. So I really would love 4 a day, 5 if it's a college fair and I can, that calendar works perfect. But in a perfect world, that doesn't happen often. So giving grace and flexibility, because sometimes, like, I have a Zoom pop up with a family that has a question after work, and, it's 3 o'clock that the dad or the mom can only get to, and that's fine. So having a little bit of flexibility to accommodate those, because those are just as important, right? Those things pop up, especially right before your application deadline. You'll get a lot of those. So keep that in mind around if you have an early app deadline, something to think forward to when you're scheduling yourself.
Yeah, agreed. I think when I first started, because there's a lot of schools in just the Portland area, and I was really trying to cram as many schools as I could. My schedule was full the entire day. And then looking back at that first year and a half, not all the visits were super fruitful. And then taking time to reflect on that and saying, okay, well, where are the students who actually resonate with my institution? And how can we be more intentional with those visits? So instead of just 5 half-hour visits in one day, just quick to the next one, maybe even 3 one-hour visits where I'm sitting down with only a couple of students and working on introduction to Eastern. Here's an application, here's a fee waiver. And so that student's gone all the way or halfway through the funnel in one day versus a quick introduction, and then we'll follow up hopefully later on. So it's the intentionality around that is a really big part of kind of weighing out, do I want the full packed day of just in the car visit, or what can I actually do when I'm at the visit, going beyond just here's some materials. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's great, Alassane. I tend to be someone I'm like a trophy hunter. I want to get to as many schools as I can, and so on. And I take a lot of pride in that. And sometimes it's, I think, better to be more strategic and more careful with your selections. At the same time, I do like to visit. Stephanie and I were talking about this earlier today. I do like to visit new schools here and there, and you discover gems. I just reached out to a very small private school in Spokane yesterday, and she wrote back and was very accommodating, the counselor, and mentioned, I've got 2 students who are interested in UAF. I had no idea. That was not on my radar. Okay. So I tend to feel like if I visit 3 schools a day, I'm not embarrassed, but I really think I should try and hit 4, and then a college fair. And I love when I get 5, and I get jazzed when I would get 6 in a day, but sometimes that's not the best use of time. And I need to acknowledge that. And you also have to be careful of burnout. I enjoy this stuff. if you don't thrive on this, it could become very wearing. So, be careful in that regard. So, hey, Marianne, thanks for jumping in with this. Aaron, could you enable Marianne to turn on video? Marianne was busy doing her job and meeting with students, but we invited Marianne to join us because she's another great high school counselor. And so once we have your video on, then we'll have you jump in as well. There we go. Thanks, Aaron.
Okay, thanks for your patience. My apologies. The time got away from me with the line of seniors asking me questions, and I think we do a fair amount of things like Jennifer does, and we love seeing all of you. So we love to kind of welcome you to our school. It's one of our favorite parts of our job to do that. And usually we just let you do your thing. The ones that I do jump in on are ones where maybe I know something about the campus and I know a student who might be interested in that. And so I might kind of ask some questions, especially if you have a quiet group. And so that sometimes helps. And anytime you can engage the students, that just helps a ton. Okay. And I do the same thing. Like if I'm doing the same lesson to, a whole bunch of different classes, I tend to just like go through my spiel. If you can kind of not do that and engage them anyway, it's really successful. And we really appreciate that. I know you have to do it lots of times. Palmer was just talking about how many visits he has. And so I know it's a lot, and I know that's kind of more work for you. But sometimes I see students just kind of glaze over, and they, are maybe listening to teachers all day too. And so really helps if you can draw them out.
Thanks, Marianne. So I said earlier, we invited Jennifer and Marianne to be part of this panel because honestly, as college admissions counselors, we see them as like some of the best, okay? Marianne even got selected for an award by our admissions counselor group because we love how she helps us out, okay? Just bribing her to keep being nice to us. But
and I was late.
What'd you say?
And I was late today.
You were late anyway. Yeah, we'll take it back. We'll revoke that. So Ray and Jennifer and Marianne are really great at how they work with us, but counselors and career center coordinators, they come in all types, and some aren't that great, and some are overwhelmed with other tasks, and some don't care. It's gonna be so I wanted to ask maybe any of you that want to weigh in, do you have any suggestions about what an admissions counselor should do when they come into a situation where the high school counselor isn't engaged, isn't helpful? Any thoughts? And let me just harass those of you who are participating. I don't want to be the one asking all these questions, so put some questions in the chat or in the Q&A for us coming up, okay? But what should you do when you walk into a school and you're just I don't necessarily have an answer.
I do have like advice about that. Look for other organizations that might be helping out in the school, like Urban League, or if they have an AVID program, that's always a great way to get in to see AVID classes. They're always happy to have admissions because it's a college prep course. If there's Upward Bound on the campus, or TRIO or Gear Up, like all of those kind of college prep type programs that might be on campuses could be something that you look for in separately, because I know at least in Washington State, if you go to the other side of the mountain to Eastern Washington, you're gonna go into schools that are small or rural or what have you. I have a friend that's a counselor in like a very small town, and it is K through 12, and she's a counselor for all of it. And she's also in charge of doing like all of the college and career readiness. And fortunately, she came from this side of the mountain, so she has a lot of experience with college and career readiness. But it's so different what you do with kindergarten families than what you do with high school families. And so looking for programs that they might have, like AVID or Upward Bound or things that are college readiness programs, is another way that you could reach out just to the teachers, and they might be able to connect you and provide you opportunities to present at their schools.
And I think in the moment, if you show up in the moment and no one's kind of, you don't know what to do, oftentimes office staff are just, great. Like here, if I had been called away or something, then I would hope someone would just go back to the front office and say, where should I go? What should I do if no one's there? And so I would, because there are a lot of people in the moment who would be able to assist or kind of ask what the norms are. And so, try and find someone helpful if you can't kind of, identify a person.
I guess the only thing I have to add is maybe reaching out to the counselor after the visit, just to ask for thanks for allowing me to, or giving me some time in your building today, and any advice do you have for me next time I visit? And maybe they'll, talk
Clue
about
in.
how it went. Yeah, clue. Yeah. It's the only thing I can think of.
Well, and I've had some very frustrating situations at times where you show up and really get ghosted. But then you find out afterwards what was going on, and life got in the way. Maybe there was a suicide,
100%.
threat, or something that day, and it makes things hard for you, but there's really reasons. So Stephanie, Alassane, any other thoughts?
Just going to kind of say similar around that. In education, a lot of us wear multiple hats. So your college counselor might also be the coach who's on the road with the team, or teaching another class. So I wouldn't say take anything personally. Be as cordial, and you come in on time. Where should I go? Where should I sit? You stay for the full 30 minutes or 45, whatever your time allotment was. Stay for the full time, unless absolutely no one comes for the first half, then maybe leave some materials for the counselor and follow up with an email. But yeah, I would just say don't take anything personally. It's not a slight against you. Yeah.
I think it goes back to being prepared. You never know what the day's handled for their schedule and your schedule. It could be traffic got you in the way and you were 5 to 10 minutes late, and that's okay as well. I mean, we're all human, right? We all have this, and we live by this schedule, and we've planned these puzzle pieces to get to all of these schools and checked off our lists. But there's that human approach to it, right? Where it might be Wednesday, and it might be, the coach or the band was out late last night and everybody got in late, and it's just a hectic morning and everybody's dragging and you're feeling it, and that's okay. Or you just got off your team call, your boss wants to touch base with you, you're in the call, in the school parking lot taking a call, and it zaps your energy, right? So going back to that intentional moment, right? I wrote that down when you said that earlier. But also I started turn on a little meditation for 60 seconds in the car, calm myself down, think about it. We're going to be fine. We're all human, and we can make, the next visit can be 10 times better than the last one. Or it can be a learning experience for me to get to know this new counselor, or somebody stepped in for Marianne or Jennifer or Ray, and I get to meet them now, and their cousin went to my school, or I can, share a common experience with them. I think that's one of the best things I look forward to, is finding that commonality between the people that I may run into that I wasn't going to meet.
Stephanie, you brought up a good little point on the side there, and that is sometimes we're going to be the ones who are running late and so on. Happened to me yesterday. Yesterday I was just visiting 2 Catholic schools here in the area, and I got to the first school, and the bishop was leading mass, and so no one cuts the bishop off, and it went long. And then my visit started 10-15 minutes late. There were questions. I had plenty of time for my next visit. Not anymore, I didn't. And so called ahead, left a voicemail for the counselor saying, I know I'm going to be 5 minutes late. There's just no way. So she was able to warn the students, hey, he's coming. And they understood. It was okay. Hey, question here in the chat. How do you handle the 2 extremes of college fair conversations? Love this question. One where you have a long line and the family keeps talking, and 2, when your table isn't getting any traffic.
Yeah, those are great extremes. I guess starting with the long line, I always just try to include everyone so you can still maintain eye contact with the family you're talking with. And also, like, grabbing your fair piece in hand, like you see the other students waiting in your peripheral, you can hand them the fare piece so that they recognize that you recognize them, and it's not just like, oh, he doesn't even see me, doesn't care that I'm waiting all this time. And sometimes people will leave the line and circle back and, oh, so I saw you had a line earlier, you're a little slower now we can chat, which is okay as well. And then when there's no traffic, that's kind of out of our control sometimes. Look friendly and yeah.
I agree, absolutely. That one is out of our control. Sometimes it's just a matter of, waiting for the audience to come through, or, I always make sure my map is visible so folks can see where I'm from too. Like it could be that they just don't know where you are. Like for my case, they may confuse me with another school with a similar name, right? That type of thing. So once again, not taking it personal, and hoping that right person comes through. When the line is long, even today at a lunch visit, I had a kid that I could notice was just a little bit impatient. He didn't want to wait around. And so while I was talking to the young lady in front of me, I said, hold on one second. Here's this. You're welcome to read it and come back with questions. If you'd like to hang out at the table and listen and digest some of what I'm giving her, I'm absolutely fine making sure that both of you can hear what I'm, going through at the same time. But if you want to have separate individual conversations, I'm okay with that. And my business card is right there if you have to run, if we come to the end of lunch. Right. So sometimes those happen. And that's okay as well, as just inviting them to connect with you later, email you if they have questions. Like you said, circle back when the line has come down and you'll have a little bit more time one-on-one with them.
I've been doing this long enough that I would say I would urge a lot of caution about this, but in terms of when on both extremes, where if I've got people that are starting to line up, I'll sometimes just sort of say, hey, come on up and surround the table. I'm going to be saying the same thing to all of you anyway. Or sometimes I've had a couple of times at slow fares where you just pay attention to the students who are walking by, and you want to be very careful about not poaching, not being too aggressive. But one of my favorite, there was a question here that we'll get to in a second. What was one of your most memorable visits for college fairs? I was at a small, fairly slow college fair on the peninsula in Washington. Towards the end of the time, this girl and her mom walked by, and I heard the girl say something about animals or vet and everything, and I had nothing to do. I was bored. So I was like, hey, hang on a second. You need to come talk to me. And the mom and the daughter came over. I started talking to them about our wildlife biology program. She got engaged with me. And a year later, I was talking with the mom, and she said, you don't know, she is so shy. She never talks to anyone. But while you were talking to her, I'm getting chills right now, sorry. While you were talking to her, I looked and I was like, oh crap, this is real. And she ended up coming to my school, So I think at a much more basic level, I think what Alassane said is be approachable. There's one of our colleagues who he sits at his table at his college fair with his legs crossed and his head down on his phone, hardly any literature on his table. And I'm thinking, why would anyone walk up and talk to you? So typically be standing, but if you're sitting even, just look around, smile, let people know that you're happy to be there or whatever. So
yeah, I love Palmer's tip. If I could, I love Palmer's tip about having families group around. When I give families advice for college fairs, I do say, don't queue up. It's not like fast food. You don't have to place your order. You can listen in because the rep is going to say that. So I think that I love that reminder, because families are kind of used to being polite, right? And they should just crowd around because they're going to hear something they maybe didn't know they wanted to know. So yeah. Great tip.
Yeah.
Can I add something that
and ask some questions. Oh, go ahead, Jen. Yes.
Oh, I just wanted to add, my college fairs that I do at my school, sometimes I have colleges that kids don't naturally gravitate to, and I have a college and career Instagram page. And so I go live and I just interview those particular, like I'll interview all the schools, but especially the ones that are not getting foot traffic, because then the kids are able to see, it'll be saved. It's saved on my Instagram. So they'll be able to go back and learn more about those colleges. And I think that it's helpful to the colleges, because then when they come here on campus for their own visit, they like kids are like, oh yeah, I remember that video Miss Fichamba had, and so I'm gonna go check it out. So there's ways for us on our side to help you all as well. So to
So
get
it's okay
more
for us to
traffic.
look at your phone, just not spend a lot of time looking at our phone.
Exactly. No, it's fine if you need to look at your phone.
What I was going to say is, as you get groups of people around, you may want to ask questions of them to engage, but that's where you want to avoid getting real personal. Like, I won't say, oh, tell me what your GPA is. Instead, I'll talk about, this is the GPA range that we might be looking for, because you don't want them to be either put on the spot or sharing personal information. Anticipate what they're looking for. So let's talk about that question. Most memorable visitor, college fair, and Marianne.Rae, Jennifer, maybe something that you've seen that really stood out. I'm anxious to hear the answers here.
I kind of love it when there's a different kind of presentation style or approach to things. One year we had an in-person visit from Spelman, and it was remarkable. It was just this very real conversation. It wasn't just a spiel. The young woman who was the representative was clearly an excellent public speaker. They had worked on, but some things it wasn't better than I would have been. And so it was pretty amazing. And that gave the students space to ask really frank questions. It was several years ago, this one, but there are even questions, I hope I can say this in this webinar, there are even questions about, I hear that Atlanta has a high incidence of STDs. What do you do on campus to make people aware and to make people protected? And so it just got very real. And so that was pretty remarkable. And so when those real conversations happen, you can feel it, and it makes a huge difference. So yeah, we appreciate that a lot.
I was just going to mention that the times when I felt like my students seemed the most comfortable was when a rep, admissions folks, just sit at a table with them and not stand and have a slide deck going. I just feel like it's more engaging if they, maybe talk about the brochure, maybe have brochures with them, and they'll talk about clubs and campus life. It just seems like it just getting, maybe sitting, there's something about that versus the standing as a teacher over them. It just seems like they're more engaged and more comfortable with the visit and asking questions during the visit.
I would like to just add on to that. That's what I think is like the most memorable. I feel like some of the colleges that came last year, for example, are colleges like University of Alaska. My kids, probably it was not in their like idea of applying to. However, there was like 4 kids, and it was like a sit down and just talk and have a conversation. And those are the most memorable, because I do know that at least one of the 4 kids that was at that visit is likely going to apply to University of Alaska. We actually just were looking at it yesterday about it. But all of the visits that are more like that, it's more intimate, and the kids feel like they're being heard and like they're wanted on the campus. I mean, when UW comes, like every kid wants to apply to University of Washington without fail. But it's like, 40 deep in the College and Career Center, and it is like a sit and get situation. So I think the more intimate it can be, it's more special.
I want to come back to that in a second. I'm glad you brought that up. Alassane, Stephanie, what are some of your best memories or worst memories? Maybe just said memorable, didn't say good. I have some bad ones too.
I think real quick, I think there's just one, students will ask questions, and sometimes I don't have the best poker face. I'm not gonna lie, that's one of my weaknesses. So just they'll ask questions and you're like, oh, did they ask that? And sometimes, and a great example, like last week, the student thought they were being funny about the questions, and I knew what they were doing because with my experience, I said, oh, I'm not gonna keep going to that side of the room because he was asking some rather inappropriate conversations and the counselor was juggling something and she caught wind of it and took care of it. So I try to focus on making sure that the students in front of me got the info they wanted. But those are the types where you have to just once again pivot to make it work. You know, that smaller visit turned into 9 students with, you know, an athlete that wanted to kind of be the shining star who then created a scene. But we make the best of it. We make sure that the students that need the information get the information, right? And that's that skill you'll start to learn as time goes on, is how do I focus in on and who do I focus in on, perhaps in a visit that's going a little sideways. Those can become very memorable for sure, in good and bad ways, right? Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna make, and you might be getting ready to say the same thing. When you have that difficult student, you definitely want to be patient and you want to be understanding. You don't want to embarrass them, especially. But at the same time, it is okay, you know, to say, hey, could we take this different direction? Because there's other people that I'm trying to really get something through to. And, you know, not put them down, but also not necessarily let them get away with it. So, sorry, Alassane, go ahead. Sorry.
No, kind of similar with that. Just where the students that we're working with, the age and their development, where they're at, a lot of them are at, they may not, they're thinking that they're going to be the funny person and it's going to like, haha, it's like, I got the win for the day. And then kind of acknowledging that in a way that's, hey, I see what you're doing. I'd appreciate if you didn't do this. I always, if it's a large group, I say, if you're not all wanting to be here, that's totally okay. You're more than welcome to put a headphone in, put a head down. I just ask that you don't disturb anyone else around you who might be looking to learn more. If you pick up some information vicariously, that's awesome. If you don't want to hear it at all, that's okay too. Just kind of giving them their own space with that. But yeah, disruption is hard.
So Jennifer, you talked about sometimes big groups, and I know that when I used to be at Oregon Institute of Technology, we would do all the universities would travel together to different high schools in a pack, and I always honestly felt kind of bad for Oregon State and U of O, where they might walk in and there's 300 kids in the auditorium, and half of them are there just because, you know, they didn't know where to go and they're not engaged. I was glad to have my little group of 7 or 8 or 10 that were looking at Oregon Tech. Do you have tips for how to talk with larger groups, maybe not 300, with mixed levels of interest and so on?
Kind of going off of what Alassane said too, it's also my job to make sure that if kids are acting a little bit crazy, because I do have kids that are like signing up for visits just to get out of class because they don't really want to be there. And sometimes that's great when it's a smaller school that they're not familiar with and they end up learning something. But like UW, like literally UW, every kid wants to go to UW. Like every kid, that is their goal in Washington. They don't, like, UW is everything and everything and everything. And my advice for just a bigger visit, like I think my admissions reps from UW that I've had really the most success with are the ones that like make it personal about themselves. Like talk about, like my rep that I had like 2 years ago is from this area, and he talked about being a kid from South King County, and like he actually happened to be one of my former students, and so there was that connection. But when they're able to like connect to the community that they're coming into is always great, or just sharing their story of how they, like a little bit of a story about how they managed to get through college, because it definitely personalizes it more and the kids become more engaged. I mean, that's my best advice for a big visit, is just to personalize it so that the kids feel like, oh, like I know who this person is. And so, you know, it's helpful.
And I think you can still make large visits somewhat interactive. Like how many people, like if it's a, say UW or something, some of the reps have said like, how many people are aiming for like engineering or computer science? And then, you know, since like, you know, 60 people raise their hands, then they talk about direct major, but they only talk about things if the group of students is connected with whatever that is, or how many of you are interested in, sororities and fraternities or whatever. And so that really helps. Or how many of you already have your essay written, and things like that. And so there's a way to still make it and to just find out the grade levels of who's in the room. And so I think there's still ways to kind of, customize and make it as personal as you can. So yeah.
And you can ask questions that when they answer, they're the questions you're ready to answer. Don't ask about stuff you don't have a clue about. So
yeah, and sometimes in the bigger visits, the reps say, do you have a question that other people might want to hear as well? And so if you have anything that's really specific to you, let's save that for later or for email. But if you have a question that other people might want to know too, and ask it now, because on occasion, like with the UW rep, like someone asks a question, but they first have to launch into a big disquisition about something. And so, so it's fine to almost kind of put a parameter on the kind of questions that will work with whatever size group.
That reminds me of a little tip I picked up in grad school. So 2 years of grad school, this is the one thing I learned. And that was to ask, what questions do you have, instead of, do you have any questions? Assume there's going to be questions, and it makes it a little easier to step up with it. Any other thoughts before? We've only got about 5 more minutes, so I want to be sensitive to that. But other thoughts on this topic?
I was just gonna say super quick. Sometimes I'll just open it up to, if it's a very quiet room, do we have any general college questions just on next steps after high school? And then trying to find a way to bring it back to my institution. Or if they're asking about engineering and we don't offer that, we don't offer that, but I know OIT, they have an awesome engineering program, or Portland State. You will learn a lot about other schools on the road as you go, and kind of, oh, I know your counselor for this school, they're a great person. You should email them that question, even if it's not for your institution. But.
Love it. Love it.
I was just going to mention, if there's quiet time and you're just trying to fill the time or get him thinking, I know a lot of students, many students don't even know what a bachelor's means. What's a bachelor's of science? What's a bachelor of arts? So if there's that quiet time, you can say, let me tell you about some of our
Let me tell you about some of the
terms.
weird terminology we use.
Yes, and you're still a freshman, like you were in high school.
Along the lines, one of the things I'll do, and again, we're getting away from like the big group, but I'll always save a couple of topics that they probably want to know, and I don't cover them. And when I get towards the end, I'll ask what questions they are thinking they'll ask. But if they don't, and it's just crickets, I'll go, oh, I know. How many of you are interested in knowing how much it costs? And that's something I wanted to cover anyway. But it fills in that gap. Or, oh, I forgot to tell you guys what our admission process is. I didn't forget. So let me wrap up with this last question. I would love talking about this stuff, in case you can't tell. I could talk about this all day. What tips or ideas do you have for how admissions counselors can maybe build attendance at their school visits, or build the number of people they'll see at a college fair?
I'll start super quick. The last couple of years, once we moved over to Slate, we started texting students before the event. So maybe 2 or 3 days before a visit or a fair. And that way, if a student isn't able to make it, they can just a quick reply back, oh, I won't be there, I have a game, but I have this question, or would you be able to meet over Zoom in the future? That's a great way to just kind of keep that conversation going.
I personally have a challenge in this area, because our database right now is not doing a good job of connecting students with the school they attend. It's really driving me crazy. So I'm having trouble reaching out to send little reminders to students in advance of my high school visits. But one thing that I've always done, and for some reason it's really resonating this fall as I'm doing it, is I'll send a confirmation email or a letter to the counselor, and I'll include a 2 or 3 sentence description of the school that they can use to promote my visit. And I've done that for years, but for some reason this fall, when I've sent those out, a lot of the counselors have come back and said, "Oh, thanks for doing that." So other
Palmer,
ideas?
That's what I was going to bring up, Palmer, because we would like to promote our the schools. And so if I was going to put this in the announcements, I'd, look up Stephanie's school, some information on it, put in the announcements. But if you give me that blurb that I could put in the announcements, oh my goodness, you've saved me so much time.
And
so
I get to choose what I'm
yes,
getting highlighted.
100%. I love that.
I'm going to jump in real quickly with the two I know. And I think Marianne might have been the one that introduced me to the Instagram, using the Instagram. I got our marketing team to create a Canva slide. And Jennifer, I heard you using Instagram as well. And I think it's meeting them where they are. Right? Definitely getting to where the students are so that we can work with them there. So whatever you can do to meet them there, to make sure you're sharing the information, whether it's your school Instagram, your marketing team, or it's the school you're going to visit, sending them a slide, a generic slide can be helpful. Even scanning in a picture that you might have, they can turn into a PDF to make their life easier. That's definitely a great idea. So however we can get that social media is where we need to get to right now.
Really, I love when colleges or programs send me Instagram ready like Canva posts, because it makes it like so much easier for me. And then I can like tag you in the Instagram, and the kids, that's really where they are, like they're in Instagram. But I can also use that when I upload it to other things for the kids. And I love it because I don't have to reinvent something, and it gets busy. And I love Canva. I do a lot with Canva, but it's nice if it comes ready for me, if you have that capacity.
Thanks.
Yeah, those little tools are super helpful. And both the Instagram, and I also have a display, like a computer that runs a slideshow. And so have a slide format for things would be awesome too. And just think of it, make sure the students know that you're not just there for like the 20-minute visit, but it's like that's a part of like a larger relationship if you're going to be available to them, because they're not quite sure, I think, when they first start coming to visits. And so just make sure they kind of know that they could contact you and have kind of an ongoing like larger larger role.
Yeah. Yeah. And remember that even though you don't know everything, you probably know more than the students that you're talking to. So you can feel, semi-confident in moving forward. Hey, thanks so much. I hope this was worthwhile. We have set up a Slack that you will be invited to if you haven't been invited to it already, where you can continue the conversations. There will be a Slack channel specifically for participants in the Intro to Admissions Counseling series. And so you can go there and ask questions, share resources. And then we will also, again, be putting the recording of this webinar out probably in the next week if you want to invite your colleagues to watch it if you think it was worthwhile. We will not be meeting in October, but we'll pick this up again in November, and we'll look forward to seeing you at that time. Thanks a lot, everyone.